Most of my family members are working in the police, so most of our functions consist of the stories of criminals and crimes. Whatever the topic it would be, at last it ends up in any crime story. Sometimes it starts with politicians and their patronage of the criminals, and sometimes he-fi officers and businessmen cause hindrance in doing their duty properly. Non-compliance of their order sometimes results in transfer from one area to the other. But one thing was sure, that they were not happy with their jobs at all. They say law is like a web for the powerful people, and only weak people become its victim. Sometimes they boast of doing extraordinary work and narrate them in front of others to prove their courage. My grandfather had also been in the police before the partition of the subcontinent. Everyone asked him to narrate such an incident that we had not heard from you before. He smiled and said, "Listen then." The rest of the story is from his own words. I had been a wrestler, and my father was very fond of wrestling. Wrestling was just not a game in those days, but a matter of honor. When a wrestler won a challenge match in those days, his name became famous all around the villages, that he was the wrestler's son of that man who had won the match. Drum beaters were called, and the whole village feels proud. It was then when I lost a match from a very renowned wrestler, and I felt ashamed because all the villagers and around would mock my defeat. My father said, "Look, son, if you want to wrestle, then do it seriously." At that time, he hired the best coach of that time, who made me practice every day, and plenty of high-protein food and milk was given to me. My only work in those days was exercise. And then the final moments came. The British commissioner was invited as chief guest for the final match, and that was between me and the same winner of last year. He had an edge over me, being the winner of the last year, but this year my practice was complete. So, after a very hard match, I won, and I saw the pride of victory in my father's eyes, which I can't forget all my life. And there was a tradition in those times that good sportsmen were offered jobs, especially in the police, where active and strong people were needed. So I was offered the job of police inspector at that time, which was a thing of extreme honor. Everywhere my name was resounded, being an inspector of the police. In those days, we were given horses to travel across the area to enforce law and order. I worked very hard, and 25 villages were in my charge. If someone is able and honest, half of crime already finishes in his area, and one's reputation reaches first before one goes there. And that was the case with my job. Sometimes I had to go from one village to the other, and it became night while coming back home. My mother used to tell me that I must have stayed in the village where I visited, but being young and brave, I ignored all her concerns. One day, I was given information that some thieves had stolen some cattle in a faraway village, so I had to go there for an investigation. Half the night passed when I finished my investigation, so I had to come back from the way, which was quite deserted and consisted of forest. Being fearless, I was riding my horse, and then I saw a small naked boy sitting on the way. I stopped my horse and rebuked him. "Oh, what are you doing here at this time?" He said nothing and sat there quietly. I thought he might have been a child of some gypsy living nearby. So I left him there and rode away to my village. When I reached the second turn, to my astonishment, I saw the same boy sitting there again. That time I thought that there was something wrong. I rode my horse faster, and when I reached the third turn, the same boy was sitting there and was staring at me. That time his eyes were red. I drove as fast as I could, but very much listening that something was following me and groaning right behind me. Then my horse suddenly stopped moving forward, and I thought it should not have betrayed me at that time. I started beating it, but it was not moving an inch forward. Then I turned on my torch to see something. It was a horrible monster that was standing right before me. I can't describe its shape to you people, and you might not believe, as I did not believe those things before. He resembled werewolves. I thought of my confirmed death and was cursing why I had not acted upon the advice of my mother. And then I suddenly remembered that she used to tell me to recite some special verses when I would be in trouble. Automatically, they started on my lips. My horse turned its direction and ran. I just braced myself with its neck and was reciting the verses. And now there was no chase. I didn't know where I reached that time. Next day, some villagers found me unconscious in the forest, fallen to the ground, and my horse, which never left me alone for a single moment. They carried me home, and I suffered from high fever for 5 days. Then I admitted that unseen creatures do live here. Some are gentle, and some are angry who do not accept human presence at their specific hours. But one thing I firmly believe is that we also have the power of which these creatures, too, feel fear. Then he stopped and watched us silent, and he smiled. After that, for a year, I could not sleep alone in my room. Can you? Write in the comments section.